Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. I'm very glad you're here because we are going to talk about a very important topic: why women's illnesses are not studied enough. At first, this might sound surprising. You might think, surely doctors and scientists study women's health just as much as men's health. But the truth is, there's a big gap. Many studies, experiments, and even medical treatments are based mostly on men. This has serious consequences for women's health around the world. In this episode, we will look at a little bit of history. How did this problem start? The main reasons why women's illnesses are not studied enough. The results of this gap. What happens when research forgets women? Finally, what is changing now and what still needs to be done? So let's begin. If we go back to the 20th century, most medical research was done on men. Scientists often chose male patients or even male animals for experiments. Why? The main reason was simplicity. Women's bodies were considered more complicated because of hormones, the menstrual cycle, and pregnancy. Instead of accepting that complexity, researchers simply avoided it. In the 1970s and 1980s, there were also rules in some countries that excluded women from drug trials, especially women who could become pregnant. The idea was to protect women from possible harm. But in reality, this meant that women were not part of the data at all. As a result, new medicines were usually tested on men and then later given to women, even though women's bodies can react differently. So, why does this problem continue today? There are several reasons. First, there is bias. For a long time, medicine has been shaped by the idea that the default patient is male. If researchers do not actively think about including women, they often continue to focus on men. Second, there is the issue of funding and priorities. Some illnesses that affect mostly women, like endometriosis, for example, receive far less money for research than illnesses that affect men. Endometriosis is a painful condition where tissue grows outside the uterus. It affects millions of women, but many patients wait years before getting the right diagnosis because doctors don't know enough about it. Third, there's a lack of awareness. Sometimes even doctors believe that certain symptoms are normal for women. For example, if a woman complains of tiredness or pain, it may be described as stress or anxiety instead of being investigated as a possible disease. Now, let's think about what happens when women's illnesses are not studied enough. One big problem is misdiagnosis. Women often receive the wrong diagnosis, or no diagnosis at all, because the research simply does not give doctors enough information. Another problem is delayed treatment. If it takes years to understand a disease like endometriosis, women suffer for a long time without proper care. There's also the issue of medicines working differently. Women and men do not always respond to drugs in the same way. For example, research has shown that women can experience stronger side effects from some common medications. But if the drug was mostly tested on men, these differences may not have been discovered early enough. Finally, there's the social cost. When women's health problems are not taken seriously, it affects their work, their families, and their quality of life. Illnesses that are invisible or misunderstood can also make women feel isolated, as if their pain is not real. The good news is that things are beginning to change. In the last 20 years, many countries have introduced rules that research must include both men and women. The European Union, for example, now requires gender balance in clinical trials. The United States has similar rules. There are also organizations that focus on women's health research. For example, some universities have centers that specialize in studying illnesses like breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and autoimmune diseases, conditions that often affect women more. At the same time, activists and patients are speaking out. Social media has given women a voice to share their experiences and demand more attention from the medical world. But even with these improvements, the gap is still there. Some conditions like endometriosis, polycystic ovary syndrome, and menopause-related issues continue to be underfunded and understudied. So, to sum up, historically, women were excluded from medical research. Today, many illnesses that affect women are still not studied enough because of bias, funding issues, and lack of awareness. The consequences are serious: wrong diagnoses, ineffective treatments, and unnecessary suffering. Things are improving, but more needs to be done to close the gap. Why does this matter? Because fair healthcare is a basic human right. Women make up half of the world's population. Their health should not be an afterthought. By investing in research, listening to patients, and challenging old biases, we can build a medical system that works for everyone, equally. Thank you for listening to this episode of our podcast. I hope you found it useful and thought-provoking. If you enjoyed it, please share it with a friend, and let's keep this important conversation going. Until next time, stay healthy and take care.